My name is Alex, and today I will share with you our KMP journey. But let me introduce myself for a minute. So I'm arrived here from Tallinn, Estonia. Initially, I had no plans for participate in any meetups, just wanted to escape Estonian winter for something warmer. But thanks for some lucky circumstances, I'm here and to share our KMP journey at Wrike. So here we have today's agenda. At first, I will briefly cover the general intro about KMP, but Ekaterina already did it, actually. And then I want to share why we choose Kotlin Multiplatform to write most of our new code, and I'll tell you about KMP journey from the beginning, when we just started from using single feature logic to where we now using composed multiplatform. And in the end, I briefly cover technologies that we use, and we will not go deep in details, but feel free to catch up with me after the talk, and we can have more specific discussions. So first thing, actually, Katerina already mentioned that the main difference between KMP and other technologies that you can choose what amount of logic you would like to share. You can share part of your logic, you can share the whole feature logic, or you can share logic with UI completely. And from here and during this presentation, I will use term KMP or Kotlin Multiplatform when I will talk about shared logic, and composed multiplatform when I will talk about shared logic with UI. We actually started with second approach about sharing the whole feature logic, and let's tell you why. Actually, the choice of technology is usually driven by product or technical goals. And to understand why we decided to start KMP, let me first share a brief history of mobile application in Wrike. We started in 2014 with two completely separate teams developing two separate native applications, one for iOS and second one for Android. And each team worked independently with their own approaches, workflow, technical constraints, and that was pretty standard approach these days. It worked well for several years, but while application growing, it became harder to keep this application similar. From user perspective, you probably don't care because Android and iOS audience usually separate audience, but from product management perspective is becoming pretty hard because single product manager has to communicate with different teams, each with their own opinion, timelines, technologies, and every feature implementation requires separate discussions. So this team separation with and combine it with different technology stack, design approach, it made it difficult to maintain product in some consistent state on both platforms. To fix these issues in 2024, we restructured our teams from platform-specific teams to, let's say, cross-functional feature teams. This change brought several improvements. Developers started to communicate better to each other and work closely to each other, sharing common processes, attending same meetings, discussing same product functionality. But in the same time, it helped at least deliver the same features. But during implementation time, we still face some challenges. After all these years of independent development, our application had grown in a little bit different, and both accumulated some technical debt with iOS carrying a little bit more of this technical depth. Let's say my laptop will have low battery. A minute, please. Okay. So that often led to a situation where one part of the team, iOS or Android, complete the features faster than other and switch to some technical task, and sometimes it increasing gap in code quality and actually increasing difference in feature delivery. And as a solution, we decided to try Kotlin Multiplatform at first as experiment led by Android part of the team. That was pretty obvious choice for Android team because of expertise with Kotlin. So we didn't even really compare with some other options like Flutter or React Native. So yeah, what we did wrong here, we didn't really talk with iOS engineers about our plans before trying it. And after some merge request for integration KMP to iOS repository, we had several repositories these days. We get some feedback. You can read, feel my pain, feel iOS developers' pain. So basically, we want to do something good, but we didn't involve iOS engineers in decision-making process. And for them, it's obviously felt like something being forced upon them and potentially could even diminish the role in company. And that's an important lesson, no matter how good technology solution might be, its success depends on communication and all team involved in decision-making process, and addressing people concerns. It's really important here. So to kind of fix this, we tried to make clear for everyone that KMP wasn't going to replace all our native code in some nearest future. Our app are simply too complicated for such migration. And second, while Android engineer can be focused on product feature with KMP, iOS engineer could tackle important technical debt or maybe even do something very iOS specific. In result, with some help of iOS engineers, we released our first Kotlin Multiplatform feature. It's table view. It had native UI and platform-specific platform-specific UI and shared view models layer and all the deeper layers like data layer. And from organization perspective, we naturally moved from two large cross-functional teams to smaller, let's say, mission teams. It was good for KMP because when you're using KMP, it's not always need to like full iOS developer involved from the beginning of the implementation phase. So there's some feedback we get actually after that. It's still not so nice, but it's already some constructive talk. And yeah, actually our iOS engineers help us a lot. And here we have one with us today, Adam. Hello, and thank you. So you can catch up with him and ask about his experience. And actually, he not only helped us with KMP integration, but he already in process of learning Compose Multiplatform and developing his Compose Multiplatform feature that will be in production soon. Yeah, and I mentioned Compose Multiplatform, but we haven't talked about it yet. So let's fix it. We actually decided to try Compose partially because of this feedback, because with Compose, you need to write less interop code between Kotlin and Swift. And it's, in theory, it seems easier for integrate. But it wasn't the only reason. We also have some important product reason for this. We had some gap between web application and mobile application. And some feature was missed on mobile for a long time. And why actually this feature was missed? Transfer, let's give some more context about Wrike mobile app. What is Wrike? Wrike, as already been said here, is a collaborative work management application, or put it simply, very complex task tracker for your work. And basically, the work is most important word here. Let's do a quick check. Could you please raise your hand if you are using your work task tracker on your personal mobile device, like Jira, Asana, or whatever else? I expected actually a little bit more hands. Okay. Yeah, basically the same with Wrike. Not so many people use Wrike for on personal needs, and especially even if they use it for like checking notification, replying, changes state of the task, and that's it. But in case of, that's actually what most users do. Here I get a notification, open it, write comment, like everything done, change status, that's it. But some users, like sometimes it's managers, want more advanced functionality, like some more complicated views. For example, in our web application, users can view the project in multiple ways, as list, calendars, chart, Kanban boards, or dashboards that combine several projects. And in mobile, we, for a long time, have only lists and tables. And we actually wanted to close this gap, but there's one blocker for it. In our web team, we have somewhere about 50 front-end engineers. What do you think, how many engineers we have in mobile?
3.5.
It's somewhere about 8 engineers. So, and it's pretty hard to have some feature parity with web with such numbers of engineers, and even with actually with Compose, we tried to achieve this goal, not to make like it's completely like in web, but to close some major gap. And we focused on like several features here. We started with calendar. It's take 3 months from idea to release. And next we implemented chart, dashboards, and Kanban boards with some limited capabilities, but enough for basic user needs. And right now I want to show you some of these features so you can see what can be achieved with Compose Multiplatform. I will demo from iOS device, so it's more interesting than show Android, because for Android it's all native by default. I hope it will be connected. Not really. Okay, I will try to do it in more second, and if it will not work, we will continue and maybe show demo after. It's not. Maybe. Oh, yeah. It worked when I was engineer. Yeah. Adam, I need you. Adam. Yeah. Work for a second and no. Switch. Where is it? Let's try this way. Try to change the box. But it will stop presentation and probably no. No, it won't. Yes, I can try. One more time. Start again. Okay. Yeah, it's finally here. Needs two engineers to do this. Okay, I hope maybe. Yeah, that's better. So this is screen is list of spaces. Each space represent imaginable department. And let's open, let's say IT department. And here you actually can see the first feature that we did. It's table view. It took quite time to implement it, but we actually fix all the major issues with interoperability here. It's have native UI, so it's Swift UI, so it's not so actually interesting to show this. So I will show you calendars. Yeah, and it's completely on Compose, and it's actually works quite well. It works much smoother than here. We haven't used any libraries, so it's just Compose code, and that's it. Next one is board view. Again, it's implemented completely with Compose. I will show a funny example why we have to re-implement this logic about task creation inside the board a little bit later. And last but not least, the dashboards. And this one, I think, let me find that looks really cool. Not this one. Yeah, this one. So it's again done with Compose with external library called Koala Plot. And it's really cover like 90% of use cases that we have in web application. But if web application use some paid library for it, we use open source Compose Multiplatform, which basically cover all the functionality on a good level. Okay, switch back to the presentation. Okay, not actually everything was good. There's some noticeable difference in UX on iOS. What exactly it's, for example, it's font rendering a little bit different on Compose for some reason. It uses the same font as Swift UI, but have different letter spacing. So if you combine both Swift UI views and Compose views, user can notice this when switched between views. We faced issues with some inconsistency in our UI components. I'm not talking about inconsistency with system default, but more about our components, which implemented a little bit different in iOS and Android. So that's something we should fix. And as far as Compose, it's better technology. Sometimes there's some issue happen. We haven't faced any major issues actually, but there was some unexpected and a little bit irritating. And sometimes the only solution is to just rewrite the UI after it was already implemented, and it could frustrate your designers, product managers, or delivery managers. And that's one example of shaking bottom dialog, and it reproduced only on iOS. And while we tested by developers, we didn't realize it, because who from developers will type such a long text in text field? But yeah, QA found this and we have to rewrite it. Actually, this issue was fixed in latest Compose version already, so we bring it back soon. So, okay, few minutes for brief technical overview. I think it will be mostly available if you try and compose, not compose, Kotlin Multiplatform. And I will not go deep to details right now, but let's connect after. So first thing is about code sharing. We started from having separate repositories and migrated to single repository. This brings such advantages as developer can work on a feature together in same feature branch. It's easier for iOS developers to check Android code and easier for Android engineers to integrate Compose feature in iOS. Common code located in Android part of a repository to share with iOS. Common code must be packaged in iOS framework. And there are several options how it could be done. It could be done each time with build iOS sources, or it could be built manually, push it somewhere, and reference it from Swift Package Manager. And KMM Bridge is a tool that helps you to automate this framework distribution. You may ask, why don't we build code every time? Basically, because there are several options of working with code for several modes, let's say. For example, if you are doing platform-specific development, you don't want to care about KMP at all. So the framework reference helps here a lot. If you are in multi-platform development mode, you can switch to local framework distribution, rebuild it when it needed, and push to Maven repository after development finished. And if you are continuous integration, it's better to always build framework from the code to be sure that the framework actually matches the code that you have. Networking part. For networking, we use Cater for platform-specific engine, so nothing special here. Everyone do this. One tricky aspect about it, because we share only part of multi-platform features, our iOS app has kind of two network layers, and we have to maintain the same authorization context, and it requires some additional code. DI, for dependency injection, we use Kotlin inject. It's not really popular choice. So right now, the main framework is Coin for that, but with Kotlin inject follow Dagger approach, and since compile time checks are important for us, we decided to use it. View models, so we made our view models independent from Android view models, so they actually can be reused between Android and iOS completely. Navigation, here nothing special because we follow just platform-specific approach for navigation. And for database, again, we don't share a database as in multi-platform because we decided not to implement any offline functionality in multi-platform features because we just found that it really not used by our users almost at all. So some conclusion. At the current state, we have several features implemented in KMP and Compose. Our team slowly becoming not just Android engineers, but mobile engineers. Or someone more from iOS background, someone more from Android background. And if we compare Kotlin multi-platform and Compose multi-platform with shared UI, it's both have beneficial from perspective of consistent behavior and required less resources for development, but in details, they have some really different pros and cons. In short, with Kotlin multi-platform without shared UI, the main challenge will be to make the whole process good enough for, first of all, for iOS engineers. And with Compose, the main challenge is a risk of using better technology and with alignment with your PM and UX about styles, about that application on iOS look a bit Androidish maybe, and plus the fact that that could be the cases where you can need to adjust design on the go. Looking ahead, we want to make Kotlin multi-platform our default choice for all new features. We see benefits here. For Compose, we take a little bit more selective approach. And the key priority is to getting iOS developers involved into multi-platform development. That's it. And I'm ready to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Alexei, unfortunately, we have plenty of questions, and I believe that there is no room for your question this time. So let's start from the beginning. First question, is Fleet the recommended IDE for multi-platform development? If so, when will it be stable?
It's probably a question for you, Katerina.
Yes, we can readdress it after this communication if I believe that Katya will answer you. Alex, how automated UI testing is done in Wrike? Do you have common test for all platforms?
If we're talking about end-to-end tests, we don't have common test for both platforms. We have iOS test and Android test. From the latest, I think maybe even not latest Compose version, our QA automative engineers was able to automate like iOS features as well, but Compose provide like accessibility identifier, so I don't really remember how it goes. Unfortunately, there is no our QA engineer in this room.
Okay, thanks. Next one. What lib do you use for sharing view models and to deal with coroutine flow in iOS code?
Okay, good question. For view models, we use just view models as pure classes. We don't extend Android view model. Instead of it, we delegate all this state management to Android view model. So it's kind of hard to explain. If you will come to me after this talk, I will ready to.
It was from Pavel. Pavel, are you here? Yeah, so Pavel sit in your seat. Yeah, you can discuss it.
Okay.
Next one from Pavel as well. Do you have one or many Gradle models in for?
We have many Gradle models.
Yeah, if many, how do they communicate with each other? What's your build time?
It's question not really related to multi-platform development, I think, but build time, I think it's about 5 minutes if we do clean build right now. Modules communicate with each other via interfaces like all modules usually do. I don't know. Am I answering the question?
Or? Pavel is here, so
yeah.
Another
Pavel. Okay.
I have just Pavel. Yeah. So okay. So another Pavel is here. Next one. Have you tried to eliminate boilerplate code using KSP in your KMP models? If yes, have you had any challenges?
I didn't get.
It's from Pavel.
Again?
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
We have several more. Why did you decide to use KMM instead of just using WebView?
Good question. And actually, we will try to use WebView for one of the feature that I hope we will use if we will find some additional resources to make this front-end part good looking on mobile. And actually, this is answer of on the question because our web application sometimes work not really great on mobile, and it's not really developed with mobile in mind. That's the answer.
Mm-hmm. Next one. Did you measure performance UI and build phase after integrated KMP?
UI performance we haven't measured. Just like, okay, it's work fine enough for calendars that use it by 10% of the people. So it works and that's fine. Build time, it's, as I said, we distribute, by default, we distribute KMP framework as already pre-built framework. And it's don't add any additional build time. We going to rebuild it only for on CI for building release and QA builds.
Mm-hmm. Cool. What do you use for navigation on Android?
We use fragments with some additional abstraction layer on it, some our own.
Did you measure the memory usage between Swift UI and Compose in the same features on iOS?
No.
No. Platform independent views must be too generic that leads to dirty code for platform specific cases and functionality conflicts. What's the value KMP bringing?
One more time, please.
Looks like a question about that generic views leads to, I don't know, more generic code, and specific cases are not so clear, understandable if we are talking
Yeah,
about
okay.
specific platforms.
As you saw, we haven't had maybe any very complex specific cases, at least for now.
Okay, actually, I don't know who addressed this because it's anonymous. Yeah, you mentioned that iOS development experience is not good using KMP. Have you found any workarounds to make it better?
There is a tool from TouchLab, for example, that called Sky that make at least consuming the multi-platform code from Swift code a little bit more convenient. And we waiting for like Swift export. Cool.
Great. Maybe last question from you guys. Oh, yeah, I have one.
That I didn't use the password. I want not to ask a question, but maybe to ask for some advice. We are thinking on migrating to KMP in our project, and maybe from your perspective, from your current perspective, you might have done something in the other way when you migrate to KMP from.
So speak with your iOS engineers and make them ready for it. That's
no, that is the main point. How many work will be left for them? Instead, I understand some platform-specific things like notifications, biometry, and so on, but it's not.
Sometimes you actually have to write some stuff where even if you initially haven't expected. For example, some date formatting logic, number formatting logic is really not like locale specific date formatting, locale specific number formatting. It's not in Kotlin as it should be maybe. And if you are going this way, actually, the both sides should become closer to each other, and iOS engineers should learn some basics of Kotlin, and vice versa. Android engineers should learn some basic of Swift as well. Because even in situation, if something goes wrong, you probably, for you as Android engineers, there could be situation that it's hard for you to solve it without iOS engineer involved, especially something goes wrong on iOS.
We are considering to start from sharing data layer. Is it a good point?
I think, yeah. We just decided to share a little bit more than data layer because, as I mentioned, we decided to not use offline functionality in any other our new features. And if you don't use offline, the data layer becomes pretty thin. It's just call network request, make response, parse it, that's call your data layer. And it's not really valuable in this case. But if you have like huge offline functionality, that's...
As I understand, you share it as a third-party library from Maven, yes? You share your common code as a third-party library from Maven. It's not a. It's not the same.
Maybe we can.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Alex. Yep.
Thank you.
Only small one.
Yeah, right. It's going to be a small one. So you said the UI differences between Compose and iOS. You mentioned the spacing like for text, the spacing between letters. Could you guys adjust it, or you just decided not to adjust it for compose?
We decided not to adjust it because we hope that one day it will be fixed, because it's actually pretty hard to adjust. You should adjust separately for each text size because it's not linear. This wrong letter spacing, not linear. It's like little bit wrong on small fonts, much more on larger fonts, and really hard to adjust. I think it's the issue in Skia side that Compose used to render graphics, and actually that issue exists for Flutter as well.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.